Hi, everybody. It is Mike, the Heal Your Gut Guy, and I have a special, very special guest with us, Andy Lacamiers. She has been very involved in the GHK, GNM community for a very long time, and she has some wisdom to share with us about gut health. But welcome.
Thank you so much, Mike. It's great to be here with you and with your audience.
Yeah. So you were telling me that you have a case study of somebody who suffered from IBS, could only tolerate 5 different foods.
Right.
What was going on there?
Yeah, so this is fascinating, and it's a great example of how we use the Germanische Heilkunde, the GHK, which used to be called GNM, in our daily life. So here's a woman who was in her early 40s, and she had recently adopted a baby. Baby was now about a toddler, young child, and she'd had gut issues for many, many years. So she began working with a functional medicine physician who, of course, did the elimination diet. And of course, she was down to eating just a few foods, and she was miserable. She loved food, and not being able to eat anything just really ostracized her from her own body, for her own family, all of that. Plus, she's dealing with having a young child in the home. And so it was a stressful time, eating very limited foods, trying to figure out how to feed her baby, her husband, and feed herself at the same time.
It's torture to cook your favorite foods and not be able to eat them, and watch your husband eat them, family.
Yes, you're not going to put a 2-year-old on the diet she was on. So she's cooking all these different foods. She couldn't eat them. Super frustrated. She spent $10,000 out of her pocket that year with the functional medicine doctor, and she was no better. She was actually worse.
Yep.
She was mentally, emotionally just very fragile and just at the end of her rope. So you know it, right? You get it.
My food intolerances didn't start until I started like GAPS and specific carbohydrate diet. I couldn't. Starches made me sick for 2 days, whereas before they just gave me diarrhea. Now they put me out of commission for 2 days.
Yep. Yep. I get it. So she came to me just at the end of her rope, not knowing what else do I do? What is this German thing, So I taught it to her. All of the people I work with have to know the knowledge for me to work with them. Otherwise, I can't work with them because I'm speaking Greek and they're speaking English, different language. So she learned the work, and we met again after she watched my mini course. I have a lot of online programs for this. Yeah. And so we met again, and she's like, okay, I'm starting to piece things together. And that's a really important part of this, is starting to see, okay, there's 2 phases going on. I only think there's one. I'm miserable. That's my one phase. And that's the PCLA phase. So now we're looking at, it broadens people to look larger. So she's starting to understand that all of the foods and all of these beliefs she had built up about food, it wasn't the food that was the issue. It was her psyche's association with the food that was the issue. Now that can take the form of a visual, seeing the food. It can be feeling an emotion of, oh, I can't eat that food, of a taste or a want to be taste. I want to taste that food and I can't. Any of these can keep this program active, which starts her way back at the beginning, and she goes through the conflict active phase where there's cell growth in her small intestines, her colon. And then once she's over that, a few hours later, then there's cell breakdown. That's when you have some symptoms going on. That's when it's like, oh, I've got a flare up.
Yeah.
So she starts to put this all together, and she was dumbfounded that these foods were not the cause of her issues. And she had a huge yeast overgrowth, as you can imagine.
And good old Candida.
Yep. And she's like, oh no, if I eat that food, I'll get more Candida. And
it has too much sugar in it.
Yep, too much sugar. So we shifted her perspective on all of that. And within 2 weeks, she was eating all the foods that she couldn't eat. And she had absolutely no flare-ups.
It's really amazing. Like when I first heard about German New Medicine, it was a similar situation. And I didn't know what it was, GHK, I didn't know what it was. And, the student just, hey, I'm eating McDonald's and this and that, and I feel great. And I'm like, what? And I didn't believe him. And then he showed me a picture with like an extra 30 pounds on him. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna have to check this out. And it was just
Yeah.
that change. And I've seen it so many times. People put on 20, 30 pounds in a month, just off of, not even addressing like the conflict shock, just
Right.
dealing with the food phobia stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Food phobia is huge. We create that ourselves,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
We allow ourselves to take that on. And so once people learn the GHK information, it's like you're much more sovereign with your health. You're much more in control and empowered with your health, with your body. You know how it runs now. We don't know how it runs before that.
Oh, yeah. It's like,
allopathic medicine does not know that. They do not know this information. This is information that will be taught in med school someday.
I really hope so, because it's really interesting, because I was reading like Dr. Crohn's, like the discoverer of Crohn's, and he didn't want it to be called Crohn's disease, mind us. But a part of, like, I think before big pharma got out of control, like in the 50s and the 60s, like personality, like a lot of doctors would say, yeah, traumatic event happened. And these people were usually just miserable, super emotionally fragile. Like all the doctors would write that down about their patient, that their Crohn's patients, that they were like, their personality was very different than the average person.
Right.
So I had a lot of anger and frustration. So
there we go. There we go. Yep.
And it's just about like everything. So yeah.
Right. So it's really understanding yourself. This is a journey to yourself, to really understand how all of those tracks and triggers we have in our life, how they impact us with the biological programs that run. It's incredibly empowering.
So for this case, she dealt with the foods, started telling her, come into peace with the foods and understanding it was that.
Yep.
Did she ever discover her like original conflict shock, or if there was some other things going on there?
Absolutely. Over time, yes. What was more important for her at that point were dealing with the tracks. And once she eliminated those tracks, she made peace with all of them very quickly. She was fine to eat all the foods again. What she noticed, I heard from her a few months later, and she had another flare up. It's like, ooh, this is fabulous. It's incredible data. So she knew instantly what the cause was of this. And she realized the big thing for her was realizing stress, feeling a certain amount of stress in her life was a track that started the program again. So then this is where the personal development comes in. Then she had to learn how to change her relationship to stress with any event that happened in her life. This is possible. This is everyone's journey.
Yeah, that's been my journey this year, because it's been about a year for me, is just, my anger, like these just little things, not being able to get my coat off, like stuff, like seriously, little stuff like that. Now it's just bloop, whereas before it just used to be off the radar. And it's really kind of helped me. I just didn't know the consequences of that beforehand. And
exactly.
Some people are real. And I've noticed in the past, like my students who get better the fastest have the best attitude.
Yes. That really, are you resilient? Can you learn new things? Are you teachable?
Yeah.
Or are you so set in your ways that you're just not able to see beyond your own horizons, the box built around yourself?
So did she do anything in particular to like convince herself that these foods are safe, or was it just through the knowledge?
It was just through the knowledge. Okay. Absolutely. And I think she took just a few days there to look at the foods and say, I'm making peace with you. It's not about you anymore. Yeah. And so, I tell people, say things out loud. Your psyche hears that.
Oh, yeah.
Your psyche is biological, right? It is not Freud's definition of the psyche.
Yeah.
So this psyche is biological, and we access it through our senses. So use your senses. Pick up that cupcake, smell it, taste it, talk to it, lick it, and that's how we talk with our psyche and rewire the brain.
Yeah. It's just do the exact opposite of
what we did to you got yourself here with all your beliefs And so you can get yourself out with new
Mhm.
beliefs. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
fabulous.
Exactly.
So that she was empowered and she's fine to this day. That was about 4 years ago, 5 years ago.
Great.
And she's bringing her child up with this as well. And yeah, she's amazing.
That's awesome.
So
That's awesome news.
it
Do
is.
do you have any other case studies you can think of off the top of your head?
Let's see. Let's see, same thing with a guy, similar type, lived in the Midwest here in the US, and he had the Crohn's, IBS, all those kinds of diagnoses. Couldn't, was down to a few foods,
Mhm.
but he would keep eating the foods. He would just be so angry when he would eat the foods. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm eating this no matter what,
Mhm.
and no
Mhm.
matter what my symptoms are going to be. So he was in a very different kind of vicious circle. I always
Mhm.
call it the hamster wheel. So he was on his hamster wheel. And once he learned this, he was kind of an engineer mind as well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
a lot of engineers come and find this because it is very engineer oriented. It's very systematic. It's 100% accurate. So there's no ifs, ands, and buts. There's no gray area. It's black and it is white.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you have a track, you will start a program, restart the program again. So we looked at his emotions. We looked at his anger. We looked at the fact that it's not about the food and all of that, and same type of thing. And it took him about 6 weeks to work through all of this and to kind of recharge, rechange how he was thinking about all of this. And then he would get more flare-ups than she would, just because he's stuck in his ways a little more.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
every time you have a flare-up, it's a wake-up call. Here's something
Yeah.
else you haven't considered. And so he eventually was symptom-free after probably about 4 months.
Oh, wow. Wow.
It just
That's
took him a
amazing.
little bit longer,
Yep.
just because, but we're all different. We all have a different journey to take with this.
Yeah, I've noticed for some people, they'll like the conflict's over in their life, everything's good. They're just like obsessed about food. And
Right.
then you get other people who are like literally in the thick of things, like they're in the middle of a divorce, or something. And those
Right.
situations are much harder to keep emotionally calm because you're like in it. So
Right.
we got to have like
Right.
different expectations for ourselves.
Absolutely. And really find those tracks, because those tracks can be, sometimes they're emotions, but oftentimes they're not.
Mhm.
They're a sight, seeing something. It's a
Yeah.
room in your house that's a track. It's a smell that's a track.
A common track that I see is like they're afraid to leave the house because they can't find a toilet. So I'm like, is it when you start to think about leaving the house, when you're making
Yeah.
plans? Is it when you get in the car? Is it when you get out
Yep.
the door, when you get into the store? And like when do you feel the in your
Yeah.
stomach?
Yeah.
Like that's what we need to look for.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
what you look at.
Yeah. So
Absolutely. So it's a deep dive, right?
I had a very interesting one. It was weird. I just live in my life and I started to notice this pattern. Like I always had to go to the bathroom when I was like traveling from my house to somewhere, and I felt cold,
Yep.
and it was always at the halfway point.
Yep. Yep.
I just got through it just by acknowledging it.
Yep.
And then just going like, hey, we're okay. Everything's okay. And just breathing and relaxing. And, I didn't have to go to the bathroom, and, it comes back every now and then, but it just, it's funny,
Absolutely. And every time it comes back, it's more data for you.
Mhm.
So I always say, if you have a flare up, rejoice. Woo! I've got more data. So I can resolve this even further.
Mhm.
It's all in how we look at it. Right.
Yeah. And I've been studying the history of like Crohn's and IBS and stuff, and they knew they're like, it's a form of tuberculosis, and I'm like, they're what, and it's
Perfect.
caused by MAP bacteria, which I didn't know stands for mycobacteria, something, and I was like, they're so close.
They're so close. That's right.
Yeah.
They're still looking at it from microbes hurt us lens. Instead of microbes are helping us lens.
Yeah. And I think that's the beauty of it. Like the cell proliferation and the cell loss that really got me. And, you know, I don't even, most of us don't even understand this condition, even like when we're looking at it, like on a colonoscopy, there are extra cells there. How did they get there? Why are they there? Like, it's just
Why are they
like, we
there?
don't even
Yeah.
ask that question because
Right.
for whatever reason, it's pretty
Right.
overwhelming.
It's almost like they think that things are so random in our body. Oh,
Mhm.
these cells are here. We don't know why, but let's get
Mhm.
rid of them. They must be bad. And
It's
they're
like,
not.
yeah, yeah, it's just, it's a beautiful but not so fun process. Yeah, it's
Right.
yeah, I have a picture of some, you know, colonoscopy pictures where there's, you know, they're breaking away, and it's not pretty, but you know, but
Yeah,
when you understand it, it just makes so much sense.
absolutely.
Um,
It's all about getting out of the fear of our bodies, the fear of
mhm.
disease. And that's what the GNM GHK gift is to humanity.
Oh yeah.
It's don't fear your symptoms. Don't fear what your body's doing. It's doing it for a reason, and it's a survival reason. It's
Hmm.
a survival reason. So it's very valid. It's very
Hmm.
valid.
You
It's very
build.
primitive, but it's very valid.
Yeah, I think when I started looking at it from like the microbial, you know, when it was like really like the really tiny organisms, that made a
Yep.
lot more sense to me than because it makes more sense from a survival standpoint. You know, just seeing
Right.
that.
Exactly. This is just biology. It's
Yep.
nature. And
Yep.
it's when we realize we are part of nature and where our bodies are governed by natural laws,
Hmm.
then everything changes. We
Hmm.
realize that what we were raised with is not accurate.
Yep. Like, it's biological for you to be attracted to the opposite sex.
Yeah.
Like, you
Yes.
can't control that. It's a biological thing. You know, if you're
Right.
homosexual, that's biological as well. And that's
That is
another, that's a big discussion
right.
else. But like, it's
Exactly.
biological. You can't consciously decide that.
Right. Exactly.
And
Well, look at the gift of life. You know, a sperm and an egg get together. We're not thinking, okay, let's get that swimmer up there. Let's get into that egg. We're not consciously directing this. Our
yeah,
bodies know what to do.
yeah, yeah.
You know, and that's not the only instance. In every instance, our body knows what to do.
Hmm. And so how I stumbled across GHK was I was learning about terrain theory,
Yeah.
and I got to the point where they're like, candida and all this stuff comes out of your own cells,
Yeah.
and then I started stumbling across some of your videos, and it just makes so much sense from a German new medicine, a GHK perspective, because it's like, you know, okay, we're more bacteria and fungi than we are human cells,
Sorry.
and so our brain is making our cells pump these things out and
Right.
do a
It
job.
is. It absolutely is. Yes.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Our bodies are very busy. And
Mhm.
once we understand how they are busy, we are much more in control and in the
Mhm.
driver's seat.
I agree. Anything else you'd like to share about gut issues that someone?
I think gut issues are some of the easiest to work through. I will say that.
Yeah.
I do think they're fairly easy because the issues are fairly prominent in people's lives. So they're
Yeah.
not super hidden. They're right there. They're every day.
Yeah. The symptoms show up like, right. Like, you know, there's some programs, like, it's just like the symptoms are so mild, you'll never notice them, but you notice those digestive ones.
Yes,
Oh,
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. So I encourage everyone to learn the Germanische Heilkunde, the Germanic healing knowledge,
Mhm.
as when they're healthy, if possible,
Yeah,
because
that'd
that's
be nice.
ideal. That's the ideal. Our goal is to have one person in every household on the world, in this planet, to know this work, so that they can act as the
Great.
director. You know, the person that's the healer in their own community, their own family, their own household, so they can be the imparter of this knowledge. When that happens, then the system around us will not survive the way that it is, because now we know more than they do.
Yeah, it's we won't talk about that here, but
Yeah. So it's important to learn this
Yeah.
well and share it with others. It is for everyone to know this. It
Yeah,
is,
he wanted everyone to, Dr. Hammer wanted everyone to know it. So
yes.
Yeah.
Well, he wanted it to be legal, to be taught in med schools so that doctors could work with this legally. And that is still the goal. And until that happens, we need to be teaching each other.
Yep, just keep
I have
teaching. So
fabulous online programs that teach this. And I have students from all over the world join me in this journey. And you mentioned a little bit that I'm going to call it, constellations and psychoses. That's another whole realm of you understanding why you think and feel and act the way you do. And that's another whole realm of what Dr. Hammer discovered.
Yeah, that was another thing that just solidified my belief in it. And again, it helped me understand myself because I'm a left-handed male. And it helped me understand depression a lot better because I'm just like, you're just being lazy. And it's like, no, it's like your brain paralyzes you because it's a survival mechanism where my brain makes me crazy to fix, and manic to fix the problem.
Right.
And yeah, and it's, and you see it in the world, it's, yeah. So
fascinating.
Yeah, it's really fascinating stuff. So thank you so much, Andy.
You're welcome, Mike. And thank you for all that you've done to bring this forward to people's lives as well and helping people all over.
I'm just getting started. So
good. Well, I'm so glad there's a lot more to do. So join the party.
So, all right, guys, thanks for watching and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.